guys, welcome to the Steroid Journals. This is a video series where I chronicle my step-by-step involvement with anabolic steroids, everything from considering doing them, to researching them, to buying them, to using them, what the results were, and every little tiny step in between. Just to be clear, what this video series is not is me advocating the use of them. I'm not here to tell you should use them or you shouldn't use them, or if you are using them, what you should or shouldn't use. I'm just here telling you what I did or didn't use. Where we last left off, I was considering starting a second cycle. In fact, I think at that point I had decided, yeah, I'm definitely going to go ahead and do a second cycle. And so at that point, I was trying to figure out exactly what to do for my second cycle. And in so doing, I found out that the source, the brand, the label, the laboratory, the sponsor, whatever you want to call it, the company that I was buying the shit from, that I bought my first cycle from, was no longer around. And I looked into it, and it turns out that the guy was just having some family issues or something, and decided now was a good time, after all these years of having a pretty successful, well-respected lab, to just go ahead and shut down. Pretty frustrating, because now I had to start from square one, basically. So I went back to my friend who's a bodybuilder and was like, hey, that place you originally recommended to me, they're not around anymore. Who are you getting from? And he was like, well, a few different people. Here's the email address of one of those people. And so I Googled that email address. And it's not that I don't trust my buddy anymore, but he is much more of a risk taker than I am. He kind of jumps into things maybe a little more blindly than I do. And so I decided I wasn't really going to rely on him as a primary source of information anymore, that I was always going to temper everything that he told me with my own research. It left a bad taste in my mouth, basically, that he got me all geared up and ready to go, and then he didn't really educate me about ancillaries, the medication to protect against side effects, or PCT. And PCT is paramount. He's not a bad guy, he is a very busy guy, and I shouldn't have been relying on him to do absolutely everything for me anyway. I should have been taking this in my own hands and doing my own research and everything. So I decided that's what I'm going to do moving forward. Now, he was trying to convince me to do all kinds of crazy shit like human growth hormone and insulin, and I knew I wasn't ready for any of that kind of shit. He was also trying to convince me to do Trembolin and Enanthate, and for those not familiar with Trembolin or Tren, it is some pretty harsh shit. Very powerful shit, but has some really scary side effects. So that was something I was going to debate back and forth for a while and not just jump straight into, especially not with the second cycle. I didn't want to just do anything that he told me to do. So what I did is I posted a thread on the forum saying, hey, I'm thinking about starting my second cycle soon. What can you guys recommend for my second cycle? Here's what my first cycle was. And first of all, they're all like, what the fuck? Why was your first cycle anything other than just testosterone and Enanthate? Because as I may have already mentioned, that's the recommendation out there, is you never do anything besides testosterone and Enanthate for your first cycle. So they were saying that my first cycle really looks like a second cycle and I should just do that again. And I was like, yeah, well, my buddy says also adding Tren to that, and they're like, no, absolutely not, under no circumstances add Tren. So at that point I was like, okay, definitely not going to be doing Tren then, but where the hell do I buy from? So I posted another thread saying the place that I originally bought from is no longer in business. Do you guys have any recommendations? And that's kind of not kosher. They don't want to show favoritism or anything, so they couldn't really answer out there in the forum. I got plenty of private messages saying, hey, I buy from X lab or Z lab, and they always treat me well, but I didn't really want to base it on that kind of stuff. I wanted to do my own research. And so basically I created a pretty elaborate spreadsheet where I went through every single lab that was a sponsor on the forum and found out very specific information about them. Like, first of all, did they even have all of the shit that I needed to get? If so, what the pricing was for all of that, what the shipping was, what kind of results people were posting. Were people getting their blood work tested and then posted, and then were people all agreeing that, yeah, that looks good or not? And were there any issues like with shipping or or people claiming that they didn't receive any packages from this particular lab, all of that kind of shit. And so I basically narrowed it down to 3 labs that I felt really comfortable. And these 3 labs didn't have any strikes against them. They all delivered on time, they all had reasonable pricing, they all had legit stuff. People were getting their blood work tested and were reporting really good results. So I felt really comfortable with these 3 particular labs. I mean, there were like 4 or 5 that seemed legit and decent, but 3 really stood out to me. Strangely enough, 2 of them were overseas ones. They were labs located over in Europe. One of them was local, but it was a little newer, and I didn't really feel super comfortable with them just yet. I might check them out later on eventually if I continue down this road. So I was really kind of looking at the 2 that were over in Europe. One of them was pretty interesting. They accepted Bitcoin as payment. Now, I've never used Bitcoin before. I didn't know a single fucking thing about it, but it seemed like, wow, I could do that much easier than having to go to a Western Union or a MoneyGram location and do it all that way. That seems much less stressful to just do it electronically with Bitcoin. But that particular lab was out of stock on a couple things that I really needed, basically ancillaries, and I wasn't going to buy my gear without buying my ancillaries too, so I ended up settling on the other lab that was also located in Europe. Now, just because they're in Europe doesn't mean that that's where you're being shipped your shit from. Now, it is possible that they ship a whole bunch of shit to some guy in the US, and then that guy sends out individual shipments to individuals. Turns out that wasn't really the case in my instance, though. My stuff was coming from Europe. I had a bit of a wait, and a good thing too, because I had fucked up my shoulder in the gym doing a shoulder workout, and it had been completely fucked up for about a month, slowly getting better. And then I remembered, oh yeah, I need a new batch of needles and syringes and alcohol swabs. So I went to try to buy from the same place I bought that shit from, and that place was also, well, it wasn't gone, but they weren't selling needles or syringes anymore. So I had to do some research and find some other places, and a whole new debating between several different places, and basically it was just 2 places, and they were selling the same brand, and one was just slightly cheaper because of shipping, so I ended up going with that one. And then once everything arrived, I was ready. And oh yeah, by the way, I did decide to go ahead and do Tremblen. So here's the thing about Tremblen. Here's why I was a little sketched out about it. It is really powerful, but also because of that, the side effects are god-awful. It can cause you to have night sweats every night. It can cause you to have insomnia, and I like my sleep. I need my sleep, especially in order to grow. You need your sleep. So was not so keen on that. So it was really tricky for me, but I decided, why the fuck not? I can try it, and if it isn't going well, I can stop doing the Tremblen. So for my second cycle, the first 2/3 will be testosterone N-enthate, Tremblen N-enthate, and then some D-ball. And then the last third, I'll drop the Tremblen N-enthate and be doing DECA as well at that point. So yeah, the next video is going to be about how that cycle goes, what the results are. I think I might wait till the actual end of cycle instead of halfway through like I did last time. We'll find out when that next video comes out. See you bros then. Bye.